Hello, Namaste, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. I'm your host Nagesh Deshpande, and this is another episode of Talks with Deshpande ji. And we have a guest. Again, we are welcoming Balaji, and we have already done one episode with Balaji on safe transformations. Today, we are having a discussion on agile contracts and flexibility in agreement. So I'll quickly uh, introduce Balaji in a very short introduction. However, he has very big horizon, his experience, his knowledge, his world spread knowledge. And so Balaji has around 22 years of experience in IT, with 14 years experience in agile engagements, plus 8 years experience uh, as an internal panel member for multiple jobs or roles in agile. So today the topic of the discussion is agile contracts, which is very niche topic. Not many have experience or knowledge about it. Our viewers would definitely like to know, learn about it. So let's welcome Balaji. Hey Balaji.
Hey, hi. Good. Glad to meet you.
Yes, nice meeting you once again. So this is for our audience. This is the second episode with Balaji, and we were just discussing about the heat wave that India currently experiencing. I'm in Pune, Balaji is in Chennai, and I'm been to Chennai. So Chennai weather is pretty. I know it's very hot. So how is weather, Balaji?
Yeah, yeah. The same thing here. Uh,
It's pretty hot. And I saw a notification on my mobile about heat wave, and then the government authority said that not to go outside, stay inside. And so on weather topic, let's move on to agile now. I'm again repeating second episode with Balaji. So Balaji, just tell us about our viewer. What are these agile contracts, and are there any type of contracts?
yeah, yes. So, for first of all, from an engagement point of view, right? The basically it is not just the implementation of the frameworks like Scrum, Kanban, and this Safe. So, typically, when we are actually executing a project or a program with some
Hmm.
client and a vendor kind of a setup or a ecosystem, we need to have at least some kind of a contractual obligation, some kind of a payment plan, some kind of a clarity on how is that the invoicing and the billing will be done. So both in a
Absolutely.
traditional waterfall model also we had our no the contracts and all those payment plans. Probably in an agile driven engagement or the context, it need to be more adaptive on the go, or rather more flexible on the go, because here we
Mhm.
know we actually begin the project with a cone of uncertainty on the requirements, right?
Right,
So
right.
that is one thing. This the second important point is, even if you go by the lines of the Agile manifesto, it is not
Hmm.
saying we actually should not have contracts. All the Agile manifesto says is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. That actually
Agree.
doesn't mean that we should not have contracts. But what
Right.
is more important when compared, no, value have while you have value on the right, the value on the left is more than the value on the right. So even from my perspective, to even to collaborate with customer better, we need to have a robust and a flexible contract.
Great, great. Yeah, so absolutely agree here.
Mm.
What Agile Manifesto says. See, contract negotiation is the secondary. Your focus should be on the collaboration, customer collaboration, taking the feedbacks, and accordingly work on the contract. That's what my understanding from that Agile Manifesto. Great.
Yes.
Moving on to the next topic. So now we just discussed about the customer collaboration, but when you talk about contracts and agreements and all that, so how this contract promotes these collaborations and flexibility in the project? Because now if I have a contract, for an example, if I have a contract, so I have to follow the terms and condition in it. So flexibility may go out of the window. So how can I make sure the flexibility is also there and contract is also in the place.
See, typically what actually happens in the IT industry is we have primarily two kinds of contracts. One is called as a linear model contract. Second is
Okay.
called as a non-linear model contract.
Okay.
Okay. Now, primarily you can segregate it into two things. In the case of a linear model, we have some 4 or 5 types, and in the non-linear model also we have multiple categories. But the funda here is linear model is typically more on the effort burnt, not really more on the output or the outcome achieved.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why in the case of a linear model, we actually go for a time and material, a fixed bid or fixed price contracts, and also fixed capacity, which we call as a pod as a service. Because for many engagement, whenever the client or customer comes, they actually ask for a fixed capacity. Give me these many people for this much duration. Whether you internally put it as 8 squads or 10 squads or 10 squads or pods, that is up to you. So probably it could start with a staff augmentation model, or it could be
Okay.
a time and material, or it could be a fixed price or a fixed bid, or it could be a fixed capacity where pod as a service. Now this is called a linear model, because linear model will be suitable for teams with a lesser agile maturity.
I see. Okay.
Because for a team who is beginning to learn agile and agile ways of working, we cannot expect them to be outcome driven always. So from a pragmatic approach, whenever we are talking about linear models, I tend to map the linear models to the teams who are learning agile, okay,
Okay.
or rather doing agile. Whereas any kind of a contract like an output-based contract or outcome-based contract, or contracts which are non-linear models, those contracts will be suitable for teams who is already using Agile, and they have moved from doing Agile to being Agile, and they also
Okay.
exhibited sustainability in Agile ways of working.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so the primary funda here is you to improve the collaboration and the flexibility. See, what we generally do, we used to put some contract clauses wherein there is a shared accountability between the client and the vendor, right? It is not that vendor need to own all the risk. Some of the things need to be a shared accountability or ownership between the client and the vendor. And how are we going to put our communication plan? How are we going to promote visibility and transparency? All these factors need to be considered when we are writing a contract. And one more thing is, in my contract, to foster the collaboration, is there a way of incremental delivery based on the system demo, based on the team level demo and acceptance of the product? Can I have a contract? So I think these are all some of the elements which we need to keep in mind.
Okay, great. So summarize, I what I understand, I'll summarize it.
Sure.
So linear, non-linear is like, someone which is forming and someone is like performing, right? So forming is where team is still learning agile and doing agile, where performing is they actually executing and delivering faster and bringing sustainability also. Good to know that. Great.
So based on the
Yeah.
maturity level also, we see from a system thinking approach, we are anyway going to talk on the same system, right? So the clauses
Right.
of the contract should resonate well with the overall landscape of that particular engagement. So everything need to be factored when we are writing a contract.
Great. Good to know that. So moving ahead, so can you share some examples, agile contracts, which structures the enhancing of project outcomes? So
Yeah. So see, now what we actually do right now, for example, now let me actually make the answer very pragmatic so that it will add value to our viewers. See, whenever we are actually doing a large scale agile transformation or a large scale kind of a setup, the discovery phase itself is going to take a month's time, right?
agree.
Basically to study the existing landscape of the client or the customer or the prospect. Because when we are writing an RFP, that particular thing is a prospect or a lead. It is yet to become a client or a customer. Then that RFP will be translated into a SOW, which is a statement of work. Now, the point to be considered is whenever we are embarking on a large-scale transformation, discovery phase itself is going to take a month's time. And in my engagements, there are certain engagements where we have called out something called PI0, program increment 0.
Zero. Okay.
PI0. See, in the latest version of SAFe, they have changed it to planning interval. However, if you go by the older versions of SAFe, it is called as a program increment. Be it a planning interval or a program increment, we are talking about a bigger container planning. So during the discovery phase, I used to put a clause called a lift-off contract. Lift-off contract.
Okay.
What it means, it is like a flight which is running on the runway, but then yet to pick up the momentum to go high, right? Because in that 1 month, we are not actually going to release a potentially shippable increment to the client. So we cannot expect from the customer to pay a premium price point. Because see, any contract which is not trying to balance the needle between the vendor and the client is actually bound to fail in the long run. So the contract should actually tilt the needle and try to balance both the parties.
Agree.
Right? So from my perspective, during the discovery phase of the journey, we actually put something called as a lift-off contract. Okay, which will actually come with a lesser pricing point to the client. Whereas from the third sprint, fourth iteration, once the team picks up the momentum and starts delivering a potential shippable increment, there we can do either you put an iterative contract or you put some kind of a contract which is based on number of stories accepted by the product owner. Okay, so from my experience, writing a contract is an art. Though we have some science elements here and there, though we have some proven techniques, tactics, everything, actually taking the necessary thing from the landscape and then writing a winning contract, it's an art in itself.
Agree. Yes, great.
Because no certification teaches you how to respond to an RFP.
Exactly. There is nothing. It's very difficult to learn that. It's for me, it's on the job, or it's an art, to learn from your colleagues, from your experience. Great. Good to know that.
Yeah. Now, just to add, one more point is there may be some kind of engagements wherein we need to validate the minimum viable product, right?
Agree.
For example, in the case of an R&D kind of a initiative, the cone of uncertainty is very high, right? So what we used to write a clause saying based on the validation or the outcome of the minimum viable product, further contracting guidelines will be strategized.
Okay.
So we need to do justice to the discovery phase of the engagement to really drill deep dive, to really understand the subtle aspects or the intricate aspects of the engagement. If not, what will happen? People will start working, then have so many challenges.
I agree.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Moving next on to the next discussion, So when these are contracts, and client satisfaction, project success, all these things matters. But what are the tips to negotiate these agile contracts to ensure the client satisfaction and project success?
See, first of all, one thing is that when we are actually embarking on a journey, we need to be very clear on the definition of a success in that engagement. How is success?
True.
How is success, first of all, perceived in that particular ecosystem? If not, what will happen if you are not trying to converge the thoughts there? Then later there may be a tug of war between both the parties. Right. So one is that the definition of success need to be very, very, very clear. The second thing is, what are the KRAs? What are the KPIs? What are the metrics based on which the success will be calibrated or measured? That also need to be very clear. I think if we are doing some due diligence or justice at these two levels, then creating the charter, creating a working agreement, and then creating a transformation roadmap, creating a plan to reach the goal, everything will be viewed as a continual approach rather than a discrete activity. Right. So when you are talking about, just to give some of the examples, right? Let's say for one of my Kanban team, I have written a contract which is typically based on the output based or outcome based. So in that contract, we have clearly told that any kind of a SLA breach needs to be fixed within 45 minutes. Of course, depending upon the criticality of that particular issue or a bug. So sometimes contracts need to be really interwoven into the landscape. It's not that I write a contract separately and then try to bring the contract and then plug it onto the landscape. Absolutely no. You study the landscape, you understand the intricate aspects of the ecosystem, then think which contract will be suitable. But in industry, sometimes, unfortunately, they actually, like we are actually trying to force a framework, sometimes they force a contract, and so it breaks.
Oh. Right.
So these are all some of my thoughts for now.
No, great thoughts. Yeah. See, forcing always will build the resistance. People may not
Yes,
accept it, right, naturally. It should go naturally by the flow, with the flow, whatever you call it. So until unless you put it in such a way, if you put it in a forceful way, it will not going to work. That's very very true, and I absolutely resonate what you said. Agree. Yeah. So moving on. Can you share some insights on incorporating agile principles into contract negotiations? There are 12 agile principles, and they are different,
correct.
So
Mm.
when you trying to put each and every contract, or maybe not all the principles, but most of the principles into a contract, how are you going to do that?
So see, the primarily, when we are trying to write a contract based on the validation of that demo itself, then we
Hmm.
are actually giving
Hmm.
importance to the working software rather than just the documentation aspect of it, right? So
Right.
that's why we have our, see, demo happens at a 3 level. One is at a team level, iteration level demo, then probably
Hmm.
at an ART level, we call it as a PI demo, program
Yes.
increment level demo, and one of the demo could be at a release level also. After the UAT getting completed, I just want a quick check on the code before I ship it to the prod.
Hmm.
So the point what, okay, now one of the way to practically implement this concept is in terms of scope, cost, and time, right? Because again and again, be it a waterfall project or be it an agile project, again and again, we are going to play with the triple constraints of the project. One is the
Hmm.
scope, the cost, and the cost and the time. Given that
Time.
quality is
Okay.
been internally factored. Now, what I used to do is for all the contracts, let's say 12 types or 15 types, we need to have clarity first of all, ownership of the ownership of the risk with respect to scope, with respect to cost, with respect to time lies with whom, whether the vendor
Okay.
or the client.
Hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is, in my practical implementation of umpteen contracts, we have created an Excel file, kind of an
Hmm.
Excel file, which is going to tell, okay, if this is the contract, then probably the cost ownership is with the client, whereas the scope and the time ownership is with the vendor.
Okay.
So and this sheet will also be continuously revised, continuously inspected and adapted based on the go, right?
Hmm.
So I may not take one-on-one mapping between the agile principles and then tell you, but that iterative thinking, incrementally trying to build something, always aligned to client-centric business outcome, always
Hmm.
trying to eliminate the waste and having a continuous growth oriented mindset. I think these are the characteristic traits which we imbibe whenever we are responding to a contract, and all these characteristic traits comes from the agile principles or rather
Okay.
lean principles also.
Okay. So you put RACI matrix also in this, right?
See, RACI matrix, typically we actually put it at a SOW level, the
Hmm.
SOW level. We do not put
Okay.
it at a RFP level generally.
Okay. Hmm.
Because the responsible accountable consulting informed, it typically comes once the deal gets won. Let's say the deal gets won and
Hmm.
it is inside the funnel, then we have more clarity on how to position our guys in the overall ecosystem. But typically at an RFP level, we actually do not talk more on the RACI matrix. Okay, we actually
Okay.
talk more on the costing, validating the assumptions, dependencies, limitations, and the constraints.
Mhm. And going back to your example of, having a demo at team level, having a demo at, art level or on program level, is that also being documented in the contract?
No, yeah. So in the contract, whenever it comes to the section of the payment milestones, right? If it is something like an output driven, or if it is something like an outcome driven, we actually put it as based on the demo, based on the number of features accepted by the product owner. Let's say 45% of the payment will be released, which is typically a milestone driven payment.
Milestone driven, yeah.
Okay. Now the biggest challenge here is generally people tell, hey, fixed price will not work in an agile driven engagement because the scope is not fixed. Okay. Now, actually, what is the problem? Fixed scope is not the problem. Fixed cost is the problem. See, the point is, if customer is not willing to pay you more, but the customer keeps on increases the quantum of the work, customer keeps on changing the quantum of the work, there comes the problem. So sometimes we need a little bit deep dive and see whether scope is the problem or marrying the scope to the cost is the problem. What is the actual problem? Okay, now based on my experience, right? When I write a contract for a fixed price, I don't fix the scope, but I fix the size. See, there is a difference between size and the scope, right? Size is like a water bottle, this particular bottle. Scope is like what I pour inside the bottle, right? I can pour water, or I can pour some orange juice inside it. But I am saying, guys, I will be delivering you these many feature points. Because at an epic level, it is very difficult to quantify in terms of a story point level granularity.
Agree.
Right? So we actually define a connotation called a feature point. And we clearly call out a one feature point means what? That wall of reference need to be called out. So we tell, guys, in this particular milestone one, we are committing to give you 50 feature points.
Gotcha. Got it. Yes.
Now, what goes inside the feature point, that thing I cannot commit now. Because I'm not having more clarity on the scope of the work, the nature of the work. So sometimes we need to be very careful in choosing the words. Are we talking about a fixed size, or are we talking about a fixed scope itself? Because the scope is bound to get changed, right?
Right.
Suppose if someone says the scope is not getting changed, then the next question I will ask, then why are you going for Agile in the first place?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I think only framework knowledge is not going to help us. We need to be really strong in the PMI process areas, right? Your PIM box 6 or 7 talks about process areas, right? All the process areas, we need to take the knowledge, slightly tweak it based on the adaptive approaches of Agile. And one more thing, we need to have a very good grip on the ecosystem of the client.
Right.
So if I'm writing an RFP for a Citibank, just giving an example, if I'm writing an RFP for a NatWest Bank, or if I'm going to write an RFP for any other client for that matter, at least I need to know what is the domain of the client, what is the business operating model of the client, how come this particular application is going to fit into the overall landscape of the client, what is the unique selling proposition. Without understanding those things, if I'm writing an RFP, it's a generic solution. It will not fit into them.
Right. It may so you gave examples of banks, but if it is a different client, let's take an example of insurance, or even for like a hospitality event organization, it may not work, right? You have to understand the business, core business, even in some cases, even their customers, to get into those details, to understand, what kind of solution, what kind of features that I can give it to them. Good. So you brought this topic, having core understanding or better understanding about the customers, but building trust is also very important. And when we go into the contract, so there might, we touch base on trust. Should I trust this because this has been contracted now? This has been done. So how you build trust in this contractual environment?
See, what is the best way to build the trust is to ensure that the trust is not broken in the first place by and large, whenever we are committing to small goals, right? See, for example, if I am actually saying to the customer that a demo of this code will be done on Friday, I need to make sure that the demo will be done on Friday, or at least give a heads
Friday.
up to them on Tuesday itself, saying that due to these challenges, either we can demo only this much, or if you want the full demo, probably I can do it on Monday next week, something like
Right.
that. So one of the best way to build trust is, first of all, from a commonsensical point of view, ensure that your trust is not getting broken in the first place in small micro goals. If
Right.
someone is not able to achieve micro goals itself, then how are you going to deliver the entire the entire landscape? Now, coming from a documentation point of view, one of the way to build the trust is, anyway, we are actually collaborating with the customer on a frequent basis. We have our touch point calls wherein we send the dashboards, we send the report, and then we also work together with the client to tell at any point in time we are always working on the risk adjusted prioritized backlog.
Okay.
Risk adjusted, because Agile, typically focus on a value driven delivery. So at any point in time, your backlog needs to be prioritized, which is perfectly fine. But how are you going to factor the risk? Depending on the dynamics of the risk, based on whether you have created a mitigation plan or a contingency plan, or if you go by your program level Rome board, what safe calls, resolved, owned, accepted, mitigated. At any point in time, if I'm working on a risk adjusted prioritized backlog, and then promoting a culture of shared accountability with the client, promoting a culture of visibility and transparency, I think trust will get built over a period of time from a pragmatic approach.
Great. And this and transparency will also help. Like
Yes,
you
yes.
said, openness, open about no, sharing the information, be transparent. Like you very well said, Friday, if the demo has been decided on Friday, be there. If it is not possible, if the change in the schedule, change in the the agenda, share it upfront. So that openness, that transparency will build more trust into the customer.
Yeah.
Great.
Now, yeah,
Go.
just one point to mention here. Clients are always okay with things not getting done at the right time, provided the communication is given to them with a good amount of heads up. If I tell to my customer saying that the June month release is going to have a problem because of A, B, C, D, and this is the mitigation plan in April beginning, that is acceptable. But if I go to customer and tell this on June 1st, saying that June end release is not going to happen, no customer will actually accept it.
Like it.
So what we used to do is more from a project management point of view also, we actually create something called as a go green plan, which I also talked in my safe video, right?
Yeah,
So
previous video we discussed. Yes.
correct. So we actually we create a go green plan, and then actually tell them this project is in amber because of these things. These are the series of activities which we need to do to take this project from amber to green, or from red to amber to green. And these are the action items, these are the ETA, and these are the action owners for the plan. So the moment you create a go green plan and then send it to the customer, the credibility level goes high.
Right.
Because you are not only talking about the problem, you are also giving them the solution, right? You are saying, guys, yes, agreed that there is a problem. However, this is the go green plan I have created. If we implement this plan, the needle can be moved from red to amber. So that information need to be cascaded. Transformation will come later. If information itself is not there, then where is the transformation? So the moment I do all these things, I think automatically the credibility level goes high.
Yeah. So again, when we discussed about contract, we in between we put time and material, fixed bid, and all that. So this is in my past experience, I observed that in such setup, innovative thinking, innovations is pretty challenging because normally those things are go out of scope. Where you are. So how innovation can be incorporated in this, agile contracts?
See, typically in a service-driven industry, of course, with my limited with my limited experience, I could say innovation is always at the back seat. Billing and
Right.
invoicing takes a precedence, right?
Precedence, yes.
Yeah. So when it see the see when it comes to innovation, as long as we are talking about creation of any accelerator, or as long as we are talking about any enablers or any capabilities which could improve the predictability, productivity, responsiveness, and quality, it is acceptable. Because
Hmm.
any kind of an innovative solution should also yield me profitability. if not
Agree.
if not, how am I
Hmm.
going to really plug that particular so-called innovative entity in the overall landscape? Because we are not talking about building something for a NASA and all, right? We are talking about normal projects which actually float across. So
Agree.
some of the companies have that maturity level. What is that I have seen practically is they allocate some kind of a budget on a quarterly
Hmm.
basis for something called a factory of tomorrow. We call it as a FOT. Okay, capital F,
FOT. Okay, factory of
capital
tomorrow.
F.
Hmm.
Then you put a O. Then you put a capital T.
Hmm.
FOT is a kind of a strategic theme, which is oriented to the R&D kind of initiatives. Okay, practically.
Okay. Hmm.
So when I created my customized agile framework also, there you can see a strategic theme called a FOT, which is for R&D initiatives. So whatever we are trying to talk here in kind of an innovativeness or kind of a capabilities and all, somewhere it need to be parented to some solid foundation. If not, no, just building that particular utility in the name of uh, innovation is not going to have a selling point.
Hmm.
Because
Right.
even for innovativeness, someone need to fund the project, right? Fund the initiative, right? Who is actually going
Hmm.
to fund it?
Right. And so, are these things also being taken care into the innovation sprint that SAFE talk about?
See, SAFE talks about something called a IP iteration, wherein
Hmm.
we actually some kind of a code hackathons or some kind of innovativeness can be implemented. But the
Implemented.
practicality is how many companies really use the IP sprint for innovation and planning.
Good point.
Uh, from a ground level reality, what happens in much of the companies is the last sprint, which we
Hmm.
call it as an IP iteration, innovation and planning. In that, the second week of the last iteration will be used for the planning of the next PI. Planning of the
Hmm.
next PI.
Next
The
PA.
first week of the last iteration will be used for fixing the code or code refactoring or any kind of a pending or a residual work.
Right.
So, though conceptually it is called innovation and planning, see, I'm not saying innovation and planning cannot be done in that manner, but the point here is there is always a ground level reality versus what has been prescribed in the books, right?
Agree.
So generally, innovation and planning, what I have seen is the second week will be used for the planning of the next PI, and the residual activities will be completed. So, what we have done, I will tell, we have created something called a system of a continuous improvement.
Hmm.
So we have delivery, system of transformation, and system of a continuous improvement. So in the system of a delivery, it is going to talk on the product roadmap, milestone level planning, your OKRs, and your product portfolio priorities, your agile release planning. When it comes to system of transformation, it is more on the agile transformation roadmap, followed by the coaching plan.
Hmm.
When it comes to system of continuous improvement, we create something called a Kaizen backlog.
Kaizen
There
backlog.
in
Yeah.
the Kaizen backlog, as part of our continuous improvement, we have some placeholders for all this particular innovation and trying to improve the operational efficiency by building some kind of utilities and AI driven utilities and all. Now the ground level challenge here is in some of the IT companies is your system of delivery will show bigger. Just an example, okay, analogy. Your system of transformation will show Noida, okay. Your system of continuous improvement will actually show Hyderabad. Means energy is getting dissipated here and there.
Hmm.
That's where the role of an enterprise agile coach or some senior strategic leader comes there. who ensures that the system of delivery, system of transformation, system of continuous improvement need to synergize or need to resonate with each other. If not, your product roadmap will talk about something, your transformation roadmap will talk about something, your continuous improvement will talk about something. Energy is getting dissipated. These are all the systemic issues which we need to fix it.
Good, great. Moving on to last question, today's last.
Yeah, sure.
So if a person like me or someone who is growing their agile in their agile career, if they want to learn about agile contracts, are there any websites, any videos available, or any trainings available?
Yes, see, we have a lot of videos on the YouTube which is going to talk about agile contracts, and you can find my own videos also. I myself have made some agile contracts videos. Now the game is like this. Knowing agile contracts is actually one thing. Using the right contract at the right time is something else.
That will come by experience, right?
Yes. So you have some 12 to 15 contracts and you know the pros and cons of all the contracts. But given a situation, which contract to use? See, for the same client, on the initial days, I have went by a time and material, let's say, or rather a fixed price. But after 6 months, after 8 months, once the maturity level started improving, then I changed the contracting needle to outcome driven or output driven. But the client is same, right? So, but then the maturity level keeps increasing, right? So one of the way is that one of the way to master this particular subject is we need to be very clear on in terms of the scope, cost, and the time. Given this contract, who needs to have the ownership? Okay, because that is a very important part. Okay, and everything cannot be documented. Also, most of the things emerge out of conversations, back and forth, right? So that is actually one thing. And one more thing, what people can do to know the contracts is start participating in responding to RFPs. Okay. Right. Apart from working on your day in and day out BAU projects, because even today, sometimes I actually contribute to writing RFPs. So when I respond to RFPs, I actually interact with the delivery manager, release train engineer, enterprise architect, compliance officer. So the people with whom I interact are heterogeneous, varied user personas. So I get more thoughts. Those thoughts needs to be factored when you really write an RFP and an agile contract. Great. Okay. Now, one more last point, what I wanted to say is, nowadays, many companies actually wanted to do something like a dynamic budgeting. Gone are the days we only do annual budgeting, right? Because for a company to have a business agility in a sustained manner, you need to have a dynamic budgeting, right? So we have multiple tools in the market, like you have a target process, even Jira Align started to support dynamic budgeting. You have a micro focus, you have Jellyfish, and you have some tools like a task top integration hub and Wiz. These are all the tools which are primarily for value stream management platform. Okay, for example, target process, value stream management platform. Of course, it supports the element of a dynamic budgeting. And there is a concept called ZBB, zero-based budgeting. Means I will never look into the past. I will start the things from a clean slate, from the scratch now. So it is called zero-based budgeting trifecta. Okay. So if a person need to be good in all these agile contracts, one need to know all these concepts. Just knowing it on a high level, like it's not going to actually help them. Now primarily why it is called as a trifactor, because we have an element in the cost transparency, and we have an element in resource alignment. Okay, one is the cost transparency, second is the resource alignment, and the third is called the continuous improvement. These elements are factored in it, so it is called a trifactor. So these concepts need to be known to people. If not, how they can write effective contracts?
Agree, absolutely. There's so much to
That's my
learn.
perspective.
There's so
Yeah,
much to learn, and so much to gain from all these information.
mm,
Great. It was wonderful discussion. So much to learn, so many things, so many unknown factors, so many unknown things here. We can explore and all that. Once again, thank you, Balaji, for
sure.
giving us a time. We definitely will have further more discussion on this topic. I know this we have only half an hour for today. Um,
Sure.
so great insights once again, and I would sincerely would like to say thank you to my viewers. If you like this discussion, please like the video, share with your friends. If you have any questions for Balaji, do put it in the comments.
Yeah.
All the details about Balaji, his LinkedIn profile, his website, his YouTube channel will be available in the description video. And
Yeah. And like people who wanted to know, wanted to learn from me, they can actually connect with me. I have my own Agile Mentorship Program wherein I teach all these real time capabilities also. So whosoever committed to grow and excel in their career can reach out to me by all means.
please do enroll to his mentoring programs. Thank you, Balaji, and
Yeah.
once again,
Yeah. Namaste all, and thanks to you also for giving me this particular opportunity. Cheers. Yeah.
cheers. Thank you.